All right, welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping straight into something today that, honestly, is completely counterintuitive. When we usually think of loneliness, we picture that classic movie scene, right? Someone sitting all alone in an empty house, staring out a rainy window. Super obvious. But the source material we're looking at today totally flips that script. We're not looking at the obvious stuff. We're diving into the architecture of a really specific, really secretive kind of isolation. A loneliness that literally hides in plain sight, right in the exact places we assume connection is happening. Okay, let's dive into this paradox, because it's a wild one. Picture this. On the outside, someone is smiling, they're working the room at a crowded party, laughing, seeming like they're having the absolute best time. They are the life of the party. But right behind that smile, inside, it's a completely different story. Deep, quiet distress. It's this visceral contrast that really challenges how we view social interaction. Like, how can someone seem so flawlessly plugged in, but actually be hurting so much behind the scenes? It really makes you second-guess what you're actually seeing when you look at the people around you. And that brings us to the core of this explainer, these hidden signs. We're not talking about your traditional red flags here. The obvious social withdrawal that makes people ask, hey, are you okay? No, we're looking at invisible indicators that actively camouflage the truth. These signs are absolute masters of disguise. It's like that one friend who throws those amazing weekend dinner parties, but literally never texts you first when they're having a rough day. Or the coworker who knows everyone's coffee order by heart, but never shares a single detail about their own weekend. The isolation is entirely camouflaged by participation. So let's nail down exactly what we're dealing with. Hidden loneliness is a state of isolation that follows you right into crowded rooms and dinner tables, completely masking itself behind healthy-looking behaviors. I want you to just sit with that for a second. It totally shatters this deeply ingrained idea that you have to be physically alone to be lonely. You could literally be sitting elbow to elbow with your family at a loud, chaotic dinner table and still be totally swallowed up by this hidden state. It is the profound difference between just taking up space in a room and actually feeling like you're part of it. Now, our source material outlines 5 signs of this, but for today's explainer, we're really going to hone in on exploring 2 specific ones: emotional self-sufficiency and being a perpetual listener. Which brings us to section 1, the illusion of health. Here, we'll be looking at behaviors that look healthy but actually aren't. Now, what's really interesting about this side is how society treats these traits. We usually praise emotional self-sufficiency and being a great listener. We see them as the absolute pinnacle of mental health and maturity. We applaud the person who handles everything or who's always there with an open ear. But looking at the contrast here, beneath the surface, what looks like immense strength is actually an adaptation to feeling completely unseen. These aren't just quirky personality traits. They're brilliant, highly functional responses to a specific environment. The core thesis here challenges us to realize that what we reward as independence is often just someone who has finally learned to stop asking for help. Let's dig into that first one, emotional self-sufficiency. Outwardly, it's pure strength, right? You handle your problems, you're the rock, you don't burden anyone. Get a flat tire, you fix it. Terrible day at work, you process it in the car, slap on a smile, and walk through the front door. But the reality, well, it's much more fragile. It's functioning as a profound survival mechanism. If you feel fundamentally invisible to the people around you, you adapt. You make sure you never actually need them. You become hyper-independent because your brain has subconsciously decided that asking for help, risking that rejection, is just way too dangerous. So you build this massive, impenetrable fortress of self-reliance. And the second sign builds on that exact same psychology, being a perpetual listener. We all know this person, and hey, maybe it's you, the unofficial, entirely unpaid therapist at every dinner party. You're asking the engaging questions, nodding, soaking up everyone else's drama. But if you're never actually sharing yourself, if you never take up any real estate in the conversation with your own wins or struggles, that becomes just another coping mechanism for being unnoticed. It is simply safer to keep the spotlight on the other person, because by doing that, you completely avoid the terrifying vulnerability of putting your real self out there, only to be met with blank stares or polite nods. So here is the absolute crucial takeaway from all this. These are adaptations, not flaws. If you're seeing yourself in these behaviors right now, please recognize that you are not broken. There is no character defect here. Instead, your brain found a brilliant, if maybe a little painful, way to protect you when you felt fundamentally unseen by the world. It built a literal shield out of self-sufficiency. It crafted a brilliant hiding spot out of being a good listener. These are survival strategies. And yeah, they might be exhausting, but they kept you safe when you needed them most. Understanding this shifts the whole conversation from self-blame to profound self-compassion. And this is exactly why understanding this architecture matters so much. We have to look past the surface level of our social interactions, not just to check in on others, but to be fiercely honest with ourselves. Which leaves me with one final provocative question for you to chew on today. Are your healthiest traits actually adaptations to feeling unseen? Take some real time to reflect on that. Look at the architecture of your own hidden loneliness. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions and always, always keep looking beneath the surface.